how to maintain efficiency without being a slave driver. I had this suggestion on LinkedIn and I quite like it because it's very true. In the industry, we push for performance, and a lot of the time that can be perceived as pressure to the people that have their hands on the steel and are in the line of fire and could potentially get hurt. And nobody likes pressure. So how do you get good performance from a team without being a tyrannical slave driver? That's today's video, so let's get into it. I'm Jonathan Paulette. I've been in the oil and gas industry for 25 years, spent 15 of that living and working around the world in over 11 different countries. I'm going to frame this based on my own personal experience. I started my career in Canada on a telescopic double. It was a Kelly rig, and I worked my way up from leasehand to driller. I was only drilling for about 6 months before I got an opportunity to go work overseas in Nigeria, an opportunity that I ended up taking. I was a very green driller. I was very new to leadership. And as such, I was very insecure. There was a lot that I didn't know, and I compensated by being very aggressive. I would really drive my crews. I was screaming and yelling. I'm embarrassed to say that a lot of the times at the end of the day, I had lost my voice because I was yelling at people so much. I thought being aggressive and a tyrant unintentionally, it's not like I was thinking I had to be that. I moved into that role, and I was the type of driller I promised myself that I would never be, because my first driller in Canada, that's what he was like. I should say in the Nigerian operation, we had a lot of equipment damage. Myself as a driller, I was very rammy at the time. I was breaking equipment. And I remember during rig moves, we had very subpar equipment, and we had crane boom cylinders fail. We had the wire going up the back of the boom, basically shredding itself as they were moving the winch. We had slings break. We had a diesel powered mud pump that was not firing on all cylinders. It was a very rustic operation. So here I was screaming at people, telling them I want fast and this is what I want done and you're gonna go do this, and very dictatorial. Meanwhile, I'm breaking stuff, causing a lot of damage, not leading my team, creating a lot of havoc. That's one milestone in my career. Going from Canada as a very naive new driller, thinking I know everything, going to Nigeria, being a tyrant, breaking stuff. After that job, I spent 3 months or so working in Canada before I got another overseas assignment, this time in Libya. In Libya, I learned very quickly that the type of attitude I had towards leading my crew as a driller was not going to fly. The Libyans were far more likely to just kill me and bury me out in the desert. So I had to learn how to change my approach. Also, because I really couldn't communicate with them in English, yelling at them didn't mean anything. Pretty much the only words that they understood were the swear words. So I had a derrick hand that was struggling pulling back drill collars. This was a Kelly, triple, but a Kelly. So I went up the derrick, and just in speaking to him, I was using a lot of profanity in my wording. And all he heard was not how to pull back a drill collar. All he heard was this profanity, because that's the only words he understood. And he ended up climbing down the derrick and was ready to quit. Needless to say, I felt pretty ashamed of how I was acting and made a decision that I really needed to change my leadership style. I was not the kind of driller that I wanted to be. I was aggressive and screaming, and this was not who I wanted to be as a leader. From there, I made a conscious decision to change into more of a mentorship and leadership role and lead by example. The example I set was by being the first one to jump into a job to show people how to do the work. And whether it was throwing tongs on the rig floor or helping to hammer up BOP bolts, I'd be the first one in the cellar. I remember on one of our sister rigs, another driller was similar to me, in that regard. So he was trying to lead by example, and he was trying to show his team how to hold back drill collars as they picked them up the V-door to the rotary table. So he had a floor hand operating the tugger, and the driller was the one physically handling the drill collar. It didn't go as planned. The drill collar swung towards the stump, which is the pipe still sitting in the slips at the center of the rotary table, and caught his hand and ended up severing some of his fingers. It took 24 hours to get him to a hospital. My understanding of the story is they eventually got him to Tunisia, where they ended up sewing his hand inside his abdominal cavity before medevacing him back to Canada. And I never really did know the final outcome, if he was ever able to return to the industry. All I know, it was a horrific accident that changed my mental state as a leader once again. I remember we received a memo from corporate that supervisors are there to supervise, and any supervisor found with dirty coveralls was not supervising and would be released from the company. There was no gray area on this. This was just simply black and white. If you're not leading your team, you'll be fired. So from that date, I made a decision that I was once again going to change how I'm going to lead my team. I'm going to step back, I'm going to mentor, I'm going to supervise, and lead my team to develop and grow leaders within my team so that I could build in some efficiency. And I don't have to, I can show and demonstrate initially, but not do the physical work myself. Another example a few years later was in Saudi Arabia. I remember going to a leadership course where they talked about the different types of personalities, and there's the 4 colors that they talked about. I had pictured myself as this very jovial kind of personality that would laugh and joke with my team to get things done. And my chief mechanic was with me attending the course. So when I got my test results back of my personality type, I was like, wow, I'm really surprised. Like I'm all red. I was an 8-type personality with a very detail oriented. And he looked at me like I was crazy and said, "Are you kidding me? You are so hard." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You push, 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 push." So it's interesting to get that feedback from my team, because up to that point, keep in mind, this is years after Libya, I had it in my head that I was driving performance, but with realistic expectations and not pushing my team to extremes. Also looking back, I realized the lack of experience I still had at that stage of my career, where I thought I knew a lot, and I did, but still developing myself, and I still am today. So back to the question. Given all of that progression through my career, how do you have efficiency without being a slave driver? Well, number one comes down to planning. A unplanned operation, you're setting yourself up for failure, for mistakes, for things to go wrong, for things to go slowly if you have a lack of planning. Now, people think planning and safety cannot be built into efficiency or fast. And I completely disagree, because a efficient and safe operation is well planned in advance. So good planning from the start with strong leadership. So what does good look like? Good comes in the form of proactive, engaged leadership. People that physically there supervising an operation, seeing the big picture. And it starts with planning. You have to understand what the job is, what the objective is, how you're going to execute it, the tools that you need, the correct people that you need, the rest rotations that you're going to need, how long it's going to take, and have that communication with your team and get that feedback from them in a toolbox talk so that you know that they understand. It's open-ended questions, not, does everybody understand? And the feedback you get is this generic, yep, head nodding, versus, Chris, you're going to do this today. Tell me how you're going to do your job. And then shut up and let him talk. See what he knows. See if he understands. And then from there, if he's right, give them a thumbs up. That's great. Throw in a few things to watch out for, some risks, some hazards, maybe a few things he's forgotten. Or talk to one of his colleagues and say, okay, Chris is doing this. Steve, how are you going to support? What's your role in this? You know, you can assign what these team members are going to do, but then get them to tell you what they're going to do during that job. And then at the end, round it all out so that the picture is complete. This is the task that we're going to do. Now you have buy-in. You know these people, they told you what they're going to do. So you know that they know what their job is, and you can hold them accountable to that. So then you go and do the job. You do the job because maybe the day before you were planning it, you've planned the tools that you're going to use. So they check the tools. They make sure that everything's working, that everything is where it should be. They're not missing a socket or something. And when it comes time to do the job, now it's slow. And because there was good planning, they checked, hey, the slings are certified and the slings are the correct rating and the right length and so on and so forth. So planning, good leadership that's engaged, that holds very structured toolbox talks where you get buy-in from your team and they tell you what they're going to do, and then you go and execute the job. And during the job, you have stopping points and you talk about what has been happening and how maybe we can improve a few things or tweak a few things so that we're a little more efficient. Or if you see something that is wrong where people are working unsafely and you can correct that mannerisms, or maybe there's a crew change, or somebody's gone to go eat and come back and you have to have somebody else fill in that spot. So there should be a stopping point in there where you transfer information and make sure that people can work safely. And then at the end, you have to do a after action review with your team. Hey guys, this was the operation we did. What did we do well? Where can we improve? And ask that question. And again, shut up and let your team talk, because I guarantee you they saw things from a completely different perspective and a different position in the physical vicinity of that workspace. They saw something that you didn't, that you missed. Hey, we should have had this tool. It would be easier if that dope pail was on this side when we do this job. We shouldn't rig up the hydraulic hoses for the power tongs for the casing on this side of the rig floor because it gets in the way. A good example of this I had was when I was rigging down the substructure with my team, and we had already lowered the substructure and we were picking it apart with cranes. I had two drillers with both their crews on that location, and they both had a different opinion of how things should be done. And one was adamant that his way was correct. I didn't agree with him, but what he was saying wasn't necessarily unsafe. It was just not as efficient. But he was adamant. So I said, no problem. 2 teams, 2 crews. You guys are going to do it your own way. You lead it, and we'll see who's better. Well, that one that was adamant that his way was the best took twice as long. I remember asking him after, so how did it go? What do you think? He's like, yeah, the other way was better. So he learned something there. Just because he thinks he's right, there was a better way, and it was good for him to see that firsthand. So I think, to wrap this all up, you have to work at the pace of your weakest team member. If you push your team to go hard, to go fast, you're setting somebody else up to make a mistake, which is going to damage equipment or get hurt. So you have to work to the speed of your weakest team member. Then you have to get good. I mean, muscle memory, everybody understands their role through good planning, good leadership. Once you're good, then you are efficient, and what results is a safe and fast operation. And that's it. It doesn't need to be overcomplicated. If you're missing tools, you're missing equipment, you're missing expertise, people don't understand what their role is, people are rushing around because things aren't organized or planned out well, it's going to lead to mistakes, it's going to be slow, it's going to be frustrating. You're going to start to, because you're frustrated, you're going to be screaming at your team. And nobody wants to work in that environment. To tell you how my leadership arc has gone over the years, about 2 years ago, I was on the rig floor and we had a service company running an overdrive type tool to make up casing from above. So rather than using a power tong you're using the top drive to rotate and untorque a jointed casing. And this tool wasn't working. If I recall correctly, it wasn't showing the correct torque. And, you know, the service company is frustrated and they're kind of running around a bit. And I pulled them all together and I said, you know, like, just stop. What's your plan? And so they explained what they would like to do. And I said, okay, step 1, 2, 3, go do those steps. No problem. Let's troubleshoot it. Take your time. Take the time you need. I stayed on the rig floor and it was about 6 hours. And after 6 hours, it was like, is there anything more that we can do? And they said, no, not really. It's like, okay, well, let's pick up the backup tool and we'll continue on conventionally rather than using this overdrive system. We had the backup tools on the rig for this reason. So, okay, change of plan and we go into a different route. But I remember during that 6 hours, the supervisor of that service company came up to me and he's like, you're so calm. I'm not used to this. I'm used to the rig supervisor being, you know, yelling at me and telling me to do something faster. And I said, well, would it help? I mean, honestly, would it help? I don't think so. If I'm yelling and running around like a crazy person, I don't see the benefit. I don't think that's going to make you want to work harder. I don't think that's going to motivate you. I don't think that's going to make you think more clearly. If anything, it's going to make you tense, forget things, make a mistake, maybe drop something down the hole, or do some work on this overdrive while there's still hydraulic pressure on it and pinch somebody's fingers or something. Like, you guys take all the time you need. Let's just do it the right way and we'll figure it out. And in the end, guess what? Hey, we ran the casing in the ground, it got cemented, and we moved on to the next well. So what would the benefit be of treating him and his team like an asshole and be a dictator or a slave driver and force them to work faster? Like, it's just not, that's not leadership. So I appreciated him asking me that. The fact that he felt comfortable enough to come up to me and say that to me, and that my internal reaction emotionally was being happy to that was how I was being perceived. So that's it for today. Hope you like this video. If you like this type of content, make sure you like and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching. I hear a baby. There's a baby back there. Oh, did you escape or is Mama with you? Found me. Uh-huh. That's a speaker. I had that in my pocket. Ooh. You're gonna try to chew on it, aren't you?
It's nice and shiny.
Oh, there's a big hole there. You can't sit in that chair.
No, those chairs are no good for her.
All right, say hi to the camera. Say hi. Here, say hi. Hi to the camera. Say hi.